G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. Very short clip. Where have all the currajongs gone? This may be one answer. This is the biggest, oldest currajong tree I've ever seen, but it's lying down with the prickly pear in front of it, and these are the coppices that have grown off its roots since it died. As you can see, it's got a very complicated grain pattern, which makes it a very hard wood once it dries. And this one's so big, I wouldn't have been sure that it is a currajong until I started to find little bits and remnants of currajong bark, exactly the same as on the daughter tree. And fairly obviously, when this one has fallen over, it's left a stump down there with live roots, and the stump has coppiced. So this is probably 150 or 180 years of coppice on a currajong tree. And as strange as it is, here on top of a hill, when most of the rocks look like that, beside the currajong tree, if we come over here, we find a place where people have used a particular stone outcrop for sharpening stone axes. See, we have these grooves where people have sat here and rubbed pieces of stone backwards and forwards to sharpen them. Would have been a long haul for their women to carry the water up here, but this is one particular rock that's apparently just the right hardness for sharpening axes. Nice little bit of rare archaeology. And by the way, this is a surviving gum tree. This is how big the trees used to be before the land was cleared around here. Look at that. And it's got a dead skeleton inside. This is regrowth, tubular regrowth. And here's something I'm pretty proud of. You see over there in the centre of the screen on the next ridge, there's a really dark green tree. That's a currajong tree. Now if I pan back out and then come down here to this rock, see that? Currajong leaf engraved on a rock, pointing to the next grove of currajong trees where you could get the feed back in the days when that whole little gully was completely forested and you couldn't actually see the next trees. My theory is that this has been left by the diehards who were retreating from the sheep and potato brigade, say 150 years ago, maybe a bit more than that, 180 or so. But anyway, that's the first carved stone that I ever found. And every now and then I come back and visit it underneath the carved currajong trees. After all, I did put this carving and this stone into my book of poetry, you see. Now I don't know how well this is going to show up, but here we have an old toehold cut into the currajong tree, and there's another one overgrown, and there's one there, and they run up the trunk. The people who came past here were pretty desperate for tucker, so they harvested the currajongs. That sort of gives a bit of a better view of it. Probably should have come up here earlier in the morning. But anyway, this is one that was old enough to have been harvested by the retreating locals, and there's another one over there. That's the one that has a face carved onto it, which only shows in black and white photography. At least I didn't know it had a face on it until I photographed it and got the developed pictures back. In fact, as archaeological sites go, this is a pretty good one. You can see the boundary along here where a large sheet of bark has been cut off by somebody a very long time ago who didn't want to kill all of the tree, but as the story goes, look, they've come all the way around to here, right, and down along. They've harvested a big chunk of bark off the tree. You can see a deeply wrapped wood grain. So somebody made themselves either a lot of twine or netting, or perhaps used the bark as a shelter roof. But yeah, this is a Kurrajong tree that was harvested during the retreat from the sheep. And oh yes, this will probably show up well. Here we have an eye mark and another eye mark, and another one, and another one, and another one, and this whole tree is a standing monument to the days when the people were retreating from the sheep. It's provided shelter, it's provided food, and it's still got the footprints going up, toeholds anyway. Okay, so footprints in the food plants for the Warbles in the Wilderness series, the long version. If you could build and use a time machine to snatch a tribal tablelander from his dream, pull him forward maybe 200 years, just as he stands with his handful of spears, to help him bring his children and wife what remains here now of their way of life. Broadacre farms now cover the land, eco footprint of those cities built on sand. Their gaze around the horizon sees a landscape largely bare of trees. There's nothing left for him to hunt, it's mostly gone, to be quite blunt. But in unlikely spots you still may see the occasional big old Kurrajong tree, with marks like eyes walking up its trunk, old toeholds cut there, and that's not bunk. So look long and ponder when next you glance on the footprints left there in the food plants. Footprints in the food plants, toeholds in the Kurrajong trees. Ciao. You'll find that on page 51 of Bush Poems, written by me, published by me. ISBN number 0646306746. Okay, have fun.